Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on today's show, I've got 5 wide receivers that the Pittsburgh Steelers could potentially target via the trade market this offseason here. Of course, we know that the wide receiver position is a big need for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 campaign. Here are some of the biggest names that could be hitting the trade market this offseason. Now, before we get into the content today, if you guys want a part 2 to this video, type more down there in the comments. We need 1,000 comments on today's show to be able to release our part 2 of this wide receiver trade target series that we are doing here on Steelers Talk during the offseason. So if you guys want more wide receiver trade targets, type more down there in the comments. So now, before we get into our list today, keep in mind that with the Steelers already paying DK Metcalf $33 million per season on his current contract, Pittsburgh may choose not to spend a lot of money on a veteran wide receiver this offseason. They might try and have a little bit more of a balanced wide receiver room heading into the 2026 season. Now, with that said, the Steelers likely aren't going to be paying their quarterback a ton of money this year. It's looking like they want Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback heading into the 2026 season, and he's likely to sign for like somewhere between $10 and $15 million on a one-year deal. And because you're paying the quarterback essentially nothing, that opens the door for a more expensive wide receiver pairing here in Pittsburgh. Also, Pittsburgh does have the draft picks. They've got 12 of them this year to make a splash. They've got 3 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, a number of day 3 picks where, you can package some picks together to get a big-name wide receiver on the market. Now, today we're going to be talking about some of the bigger names. Part 2 will be more of the lower-level names, some veteran guys that, could be cut, could be traded. We still don't know just yet. But these guys that we're talking about today would almost certainly need to be traded for. We'll start with Justin Jefferson from the Minnesota Vikings. Now, maybe Justin Jefferson doesn't want to leave the Minnesota Vikings, and if that's the case, he will not be traded. The Minnesota Vikings would be dumb to want to trade arguably the best receiver in football. But is it possible that Justin Jefferson is just done with Minnesota's quarterback situation? Is it possible that he looks at his situation right now where he is still in the prime of his career? He's only got a few years left before he turns 30 years old, and he says, you know what? I'm not going to waste the rest of my prime years playing with J.J. McCarthy, maybe the worst starting quarterback in football last year, over the next several years. I'm not going to waste my prime here. I want out of Minnesota. Is it possible? I think it is a possibility. Take a look at Jefferson's profile. He's only 27 years old. And he's possibly the best wide receiver in the NFL today. I'd probably put him at number 1 on my list if I were forced to tell you who I think the best receiver in football is. And he still has 3 years left on his current contract. Now, it's an expensive contract, but maybe not quite as expensive as you might think for maybe the best receiver in football if he's traded, because the Steelers would not be on the hook for the signing bonus that he got on his previous extension with the Vikings. His cap hit next season is only $23.5 million. And for Justin Jefferson, that's a steal. And then over the next 2 years, it's a $30 million and $34 million cap hit. But with the NFL cap going up by at least $20 million every single year at this point, those numbers are not going to be as crazy once we get into some of the higher numbers that the NFL cap is going to because of the new media rights stuff that's going on in the NFL right now. But honestly, guys, I wouldn't count on this happening, all right? I do think that Justin Jefferson does have a certain loyalty to the Minnesota Vikings, and I think that he wants to give it at least one more year to see what J.J. McCarthy or whoever they bring in at quarterback can be. Obviously, that's the team that drafted him. It's the team that, paid him, and I know he loves operating in Kevin O'Connell's offense. So if this can be worked out, I think it will be worked out. But just keep in mind, guys, that if a trade goes down for Justin Jefferson, it's going to be pricey, all right? You're probably going to have to give up 2 first-round picks and then probably another player. Maybe the Vikings would be interested in a guy like Roman Wilson. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you accept this trade if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers for maybe the best receiver in football? Type A for accept or D for decline. 2 first-round picks in Roman Wilson for Justin Jefferson. Is that a deal you want to do? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Now, before we get into the rest of today's show, I want to tell you about our St. Patty's Day t-shirt that we currently have available for you guys on our website right now. Just go to chatsports.com/pickgreen to pick up your Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt. today. It's limited edition. This is only going to be available up until around St. Patrick's Day, and it's only $29.99, guys. So I know you guys have been asking for merch and all this different stuff over the last several years, and we're finally partnering with a company here that we're really proud to partner with our merch game. It's affordable for you guys, but also you get really high quality materials, and it's really a high quality product, guys. I'm really proud of it, and the more that we sell here on Steelers Talk, the more opportunities to do merch are going to pop up for the NFL draft, for NFL free agency, for all these different things that are going to be coming up in the weeks and months to come. The more that we prove to our bosses that this stuff can sell, the more opportunities we're going to get on this channel. So get yours today, chatsports.com/pitgreen. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show if you guys want to make a purchase just in time for St. Patty's Day. All right, so now let's continue on here with our wide receiver trade targets with Jordan Addison, another Minnesota Viking here. And, we'll see just how realistic this possibility could become. But keep in mind with these Vikings guys, by the way, that they, are coming over potentially from Minnesota, where Brian Angelico was the pass game coordinator there under Kevin O'Connell. He's now the offensive coordinator here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Addison is somebody that people from Pittsburgh are very familiar with. He's still only 24 years old. He's still on his rookie contract. He's got 1 year left plus a fifth-year option, but he won the Biletnikoff Award playing for the Pitt Panthers back in 2021 with Kenny Pickett throwing him the football. So, I think that this is a very talented player. He's undersized at 179 pounds, but he's kind of like that perfect wide receiver too, because he's such a good route runner. He's got good hands for somebody of his size. And, Addison has certainly gotten on Minnesota's nerves during his rookie contract. He missed curfew in an international game this year. Of course, he's been arrested for DUIs and going too fast in a sports car and all that different stuff. Certainly some judgment issues with Jordan Addison, a young man that hopefully can mature as his NFL journey continues on. But on paper, man, when just talking about football, Jordan Addison would be Pittsburgh's ideal wide receiver too, because to play with Aaron Rodgers, who is likely going to be the quarterback here in Pittsburgh next year, you got to be able to be a nuanced route runner that can vary the timing of your routes to, break open when the quarterback is looking at you in his progression. It was the main issue with Roman Wilson, for example, this year in Pittsburgh. And Jordan Addison is one of the best in football at doing that as a secondary wide receiver piece. I think he would be an awesome complement to DK Metcalf. And obviously, having the prodigal son essentially return to Pittsburgh would be absolutely a fantastic storyline to boot. And my guess is Minnesota decides not to trade him. He still has 2 years left of his rookie deal if they want to take on his fifth-year option, which I'm guessing they will. And, they currently have one of the best wide receiver duos in football in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So if they can keep that together this year, my guess is, they will choose to do so heading into the 2026 offseason. But you never know. Then we get to A.J. Brown here of the Philadelphia Eagles. Brown has certainly been circulating in NFL trade rumors over the last several weeks, and it's no secret that A.J. Brown is disgruntled with his current team, the Philadelphia Eagles. His head coach, Nick Sirianni, he's had screaming matches with them on the sideline. Jalen Hurts multiple times called out his quarterback in post-game interviews, all that different stuff, and it just seems like A.J. Brown's ready for a change of scenery. And I know for a fact he would love to come to Pittsburgh because guess what? DK Metcalf is here, and DK is obviously a good friend of A.J. Brown. They were college teammates there at Ole Miss. They were in the same draft class together. And just imagine if this is our wide receiver duo here in Pittsburgh. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a secondary tasked with bringing down either one of these guys if we can make this a reality here in Pittsburgh. But A.J.'s getting up there in age. He's 29 years old next year. Now, he's got unbelievable physical ability. So if there's anybody that's going to be able to extend their prime into their 30s, it's going to be a guy like A.J. Brown, who's just built like Adonis. And then, he's arguably still a top 5 receiver in the game today. He does everything. He's a good route runner with a diverse route tree for a guy of his size, which is so rare. He's one of the best 50-50 ball, contested catch guys down the field in the game. He's an awesome yak threat. He's got big hands and makes tough catches. He just does it all, guys. And he's still got 4 years left on his current contract. So if you want to pair somebody up with DK Metcalf for the next 4 years here in Pittsburgh, A.J. Brown could potentially do that. Now, you guys can take a look at his cap hits over the next half decade. Now, 2030 is when his void year comes up, and it all comes crashing to a halt there at 2030, where you have to pay $53.52 million against the cap in 2030, just because that's all the void money that's coming up due at the end of his contract. But you take a look here, during his playing time, if you trade for him, you're not paying that much for like a superstar level wide receiver in A.J. Brown. Just about $15 million next year, $18 million in 2027, about $24 million in 28, and then about $30 million in 29. And by the way, the cap is going to go up like $80 million more by 2029. So paying a receiver $30 million is going to be a big steal by the time that this contract is up. So not only are you adding an awesome football player, but you're getting him at not that high of a cap hit, but obviously you have to pay the price in 2030 for somebody that won't be under contract, but you're still on the hook for $53.52 million if you make this trade. And that's why this would be an all-in type of move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, all right? They want to go all in with Aaron Rodgers to go on one Super Bowl run. Okay, pairing A.J. Brown with DK Metcalf would certainly get that job done. And because the cap hits for A.J. Brown are not that high, that means you can surround A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers with more players that you can get in free agency. It's definitely an interesting possibility here, guys. Now, it's not going to be as expensive as a Justin Jefferson trade, who's 2 years younger and all those different things, but, it's still going to be expensive. You're going to have to give up at least your first-round pick this year, number 21, and then probably something extra, probably a third-round pick. And I'm throwing in number 76 in there. Maybe they want an edge rusher. Maybe Nick Herbig is included in this deal as well if the Steelers are looking to unload one of their edge rushers this year in exchange for a high-end wide receiver talent. It's certainly a possibility to keep your eye on. Now, before we talk about the rest of our wide receiver trade targets today, guys, make sure you click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. Help out the channel today by clicking that thumbs up icon. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying this video as a Steelers fan and that they should recommend this video to other Steelers fans. It helps get more eyes on the channel, more subscribers, all that different stuff. So if you want to help this video be the best it can be, click that thumbs up icon right now. Then we move on to Brian Thomas Jr., first-round pick just a couple of years ago, and he was being shopped by the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. Now, not shopped in the traditional sense where it's like we're trying to get rid of him, but they were reportedly listening to trade offers for BTJ at the trade deadline last year. Obviously, nothing ends up happening in terms of a trade getting done, but Brian Thomas Jr. Is certainly somebody that hasn't had the best connection with Trevor Lawrence in his time there in Jacksonville. Jacoby Myers came onto the scene and completely took over that number one receiver role there in Jacksonville, and Brian Thomas Jr. is still very young, just 23 years old. He was the 23rd overall pick in 2024. He's got top 10 wide receiver potential with his athleticism, his speed, and that combination that he brings to the table, not to mention the size he brings to the table. Like, he's got the physical skill set to one day be a top 10, maybe even top 5 receiver in the game, and he still has 2 years plus the 5th-year option left on his rookie contract. So if you get him, you're getting a super talented wide receiver too to pair with DK Metcalf. That you get 3 more years of cost-controlled football out of, and he's still super, super young, man. So the sky really is the limit for a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. But like the other guys, he's going to be super expensive. Now, I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. has done enough in this league to be as expensive as a guy like A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson, but I do think he's worth a first-round pick. I think he's definitely shown that kind of potential. And listen, man, if the Steelers are sitting there with the number 21 pick and they're like, man, we like some of these draft picks, but we want somebody that's already had some experience in this league instead, and somebody that could still be a future number one receiver for us, Brian Thomas Jr. could be somebody that they look at as a possibility. Who knows if this would be enough for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Maybe they want 2 first-round picks for him. In that case, I think that'd be a bit too much, and I think BTJ stays in Jacksonville. But then we get to Jaylen Waddle, another guy that was being shopped, so to speak, at the trade deadline last year. The Dolphins were listening to trade offers for him, and apparently the price tag was too high for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were trying to get him at the last second, couldn't come to terms on a deal with Miami. But listen, man, now Miami's doing a full-scale fire sale. They got rid of Tyreek Hill. They got rid of Bradley Chubb. They're probably going to get rid of Tua Tagovailoa. Like, they're starting over there in Miami, and Jaylen Waddle's 27 years old, which is still young, but by the time that the Dolphins, by the time their rebuild is over and they're competing for, in the playoffs and for championships again, it's going to be at least 2 to 3 years. It's going to be a complete roster overhaul. By the time that time comes, he's going to be 29, 30 years old. And do the Dolphins really feel like he's a long-term piece still at 27 years old? He's one of the more electric players in the entire league, one of the fastest receivers in the game, really good route runner, can get open quickly. And especially if Rodgers is coming back next year as this team's quarterback, you need people that can get open quickly. Jaylen Waddle definitely fits that bill. Now you guys can take a look at the cap hits that the Steelers would be taking on if he is traded here. Very affordable next year. Just a $7.88 million cap hit in 2026, more than doable. But then it does go up to 30+ in the next 2 seasons. And then you get 2 void years where you got to pay around $6 million and $3 million respectively in 2029 and 2030 in years where he's not under contract. Okay, so just keep that in mind over the next 3 years if the Steelers end up making a move. But kind of like Brian Thomas Jr., I think a fair compensation for a guy like Waddle is going to be the first round pick, number 21, yet again. So this is another option where, let's say you call up Jacksonville and they want 2 first-round picks for Brian Thomas Jr., but then the Dolphins say, hey, we'll give you Jaylen Waddle for just a first. I think that this is one that you can definitely keep your eye on for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this offseason. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Which wide receiver is the most likely to be traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because if we get 1,000 comments on today's show, we are going to be getting you guys a part 2 of this video where we break down even more wide receiver trade targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure you click that subscribe button to see if we have that part 2 come out tomorrow.